You're listening to That's Pretty Dark,
the podcast where we talk about all of the entertainment that scared us as children
and still haunts us as adults. So grab your flashlight and join us as we take a frightfully nostalgic look over our shoulders.
And under our beds.
And in our closets.
And together we'll realize, whoa, that's pretty dark.
That's pretty dark.
I got it bad, and that ain't good. Man, I'm listening to this. I'm listening to this big band swing jazz mix playlist.
And I just have Taylor Swift in my head.
Spotify.
I'll be down bad. You can be big band.
Yeah, I'll be big band. I was just like, what music can I play for this episode? We're covering obviously Cats Don't Dance, and I was like, what's good music for this vibe? What can I do? And Caitlin was like, big band music. I was like, hell yeah, that's a really good idea. I'm feeling super jazzy. Swinging. I hope it gets a little bit more swinging because Oscar Peterson Trio. This is putting me in the mood. I mean, I want like dim.
In the mood. We need to be in the mood today.
This is actually perfect because I was just in Savannah this past weekend for a little birthday trip. Me and my girlfriend, Lauren, both of our birthdays are this month. And we took a little post-tax season weekend trip.
To go see the ghosties.
Yeah, we toured a bunch of graveyards. It was awesome. But one of the highlights is we saw as many haunted establishments as we possibly could. I found a list online of like 9 haunted restaurants, bars, whatever. Had some of the best food I've ever eaten in my entire life. And had some of the best cocktails I've ever had in my entire life.
Were the food and cocktails haunted?
They haunted me. Those spirits, I was imbibed
That's good.
with some spirits.
Or maybe not.
And I was possessed
Depending.
by a lot of delicious food in Savannah, Georgia. And I'm going to move there, so look out for that.
Yeah, he told me that, y'all. He said
I've been saying that for years.
He's headed off to Savannah.
I want to live there so bad. But this is, oh my God, this is just putting it so groovy. I'll have to lay in something to put you guys in the same mood I'm in.
Yeah,
because,
everybody's just hearing you describe the music that you're hearing in your headphones, and they're like,
I'm really feeling it. I don't know if it's the music
Christian,
or the whiskey or both, but I got both going on.
And I have neither music nor whiskey. I just have a bunch of notes in front of my face. That's all I got. And
that's your burden because, I just put myself through that with ye old Little Nemo in that Slumberland. But yeah, I'm just grooving. If you want to be like me, if you want to be like Christian, put you on some smooth, big band swing jazz mix.
But listen to us first.
Listen to us.
On
That's Pretty Dark.
That's Pretty Dark, where my name is Kaylin.
That's right. And you heard it here first, folks. My name's Christian, and I'm bringing you that good late night jazz.
We don't normally mention it if there's changes in our quality or production, but I do have to say he has some new microphone settings going on. He's got a new mic set up, so I think he thinks that he's on Drive Time Radio.
I feel really good. I feel really good.
It's kind of fun. I'm not gonna lie.
Because nobody knows this, but I've been messing with a new mic. Yeah, like you just said, for the past few episodes, and I can't get it quite right. I'm not happy with where it's at. And I just adjusted some of the mic settings, so Yeah,
he is feeling big time radio DJ today, y'all. It's really funny to watch, actually.
Good to be here on this mic. I gotta change this song because this is putting me in like a really I'm gonna get you through this traffic this evening. Look at those.
That's how
headlights.
That's exactly the tone of your voice right now.
It's getting all red and bright, and it's kind of fitting because we're going back to kind of a pseudo old Hollywood vibe.
That's right.
For the next 2 episodes, this 2-part series.
2 parts of Cats Don't Dance. I'm going to be honest, I fully planned for this to be 1 part, 1 movie night. I thought you guys deserved that. Just a little, movie night treat.
Less of a heavy...
whoa, boy. Yeah? Let me just say the notes. I have so much. And
That's exciting.
It's not just the production. Of course, today we're going to talk through the production story and how the film came to be, as we tend to do in a part 1 episode. But the more that I got into the plot, the more little Hollywood trivia things that I wanted to start sharing, which is how a whole part 2 evolved. So you guys are going to get it all.
Nice.
All of Kaylin's thoughts on Hollywood together in one place.
That's really good. That's really
Maybe
good.
Maybe not all, but most.
The only thing I knew about this movie going in, because I've never seen it,
was
that there are lots of homages and nods to old Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't disappointed by the amount of references they threw in.
They really jam it all.
The one that stood out the most was the one they used so many times over and over was Clark Gable. They mention him and
Yes,
they say his name.
repeatedly.
Like, I don't know, half a dozen times? Why him specifically?
Well, there's several. I mean, we'll get there.
Yeah.
But, Wizard of Oz, Gone with the Wind.
Yeah, the movie posters with Dolly Dimple and everything. Yeah.
There's so much here and so much history.
So fun.
A lot of people might not think it's a pretty dark, title. If in your memory, just remember it as that glimmery, shimmery, sparkling sort of old Hollywood feeling with the humor and the wit, which is totally there. It's totally present.
Yeah.
But if you don't think that it belongs, I would challenge you to go listen to Big and Loud again and the reprise specifically.
Yeah, that one for sure.
You'll feel it then. You'll understand why it's landed on our list and also why it has haunted me in both good and bad ways for the past 27 years.
Damn. Yeah, I would say you buried the lead on Big and Loud because the first time you pitched this concept to me, like, I don't know, when we were first planning the podcast as a whole, when we first decided to expand it to things besides Are You Afraid of the Dark, you were like, I gotta cover Cats Don't Dance. Watch this YouTube video of Big and Loud.
Yes.
And it was just the first part of her on the piano. And I was sold off of that alone, of the whole child star
remember this, actually, yeah.
darkness of her basically, well, she's showing her panties the entire time.
That too.
Being a child.
Yeah.
And it was how that got me, that made me feel
that was icky to you.
That
right
made me
front.
feel the ick. But I did not realize there was a reprise that blew up
far darker
into a Little Mermaid-esque Ursula.
Fall big.
Yeah.
It's gonna fall loud.
So
yeah, it's a big deal.
Very fitting that we're doing this movie on the coattails of Quiet on Set, where we make the children out to be the villains, the child stars.
Hey, I have so much to say about that, but that's going to be a part 2 conversation because I simply just couldn't fit everything into one.
Good.
Episode,
I'm glad we're all on the same page.
Really can't believe we've already said the word panties and we're 6 minutes in? This is already a disaster. Okay. Ladies.
It's unavoidable.
Gentlemen, thems, theys. I would love to share with you the history of Cats Don't Dance.
I'm so excited. Gotta grab my decanter. What is this?
Nice.
The 1950s?
No, this is the 1930s.
1930s. This is post-prohibition.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff right here.
Cats Don't Dance premiered on March 26th, 1997, and it was the only fully animated feature produced by Turner Feature Animation, which was merged during its post-production into Warner Brothers.
Okay.
Of course, this was also after the merger of Time Warner with Turner Broadcasting in 1996.
I was going to say, Turner that we've discussed at length.
Yes, we have discussed a lot of this history due to Hanna-Barbera and the then CEO of Turner Feature Animation, a pretty dark regular name, David Kirshner.
Kirshner, yeah.
I'm going to do my very best to say his name properly because I mess it up at least 60% of the time.
Kirshner, we forgive you. Yeah, if you want to learn more all about the history of Turner, go back and listen to our intro to Courage the Cowardly Dog episode.
I'll try to refresh your memory if anything.
I think it was a 2-part series, I think.
Yes, and I will try to refresh your memory if anything comes up that's super relevant. But obviously, there is a lot of merging. There are a lot of acquisitions. There were a lot of titles and a lot of intellectual property that changed hands through this time. And it just so happened to be the time period during which Cats Don't Dance was being produced. So this resulted in a nearly 5-year ordeal trying to get this film completed and out there because of all the times that Turner Feature Animation changed hands and executives. Right. So we've got a whole lot to dive into there. Sort
of the name of Turner's game was just business acquisitions and sales and like
eating
all this
up
back
other
and
companies,
forth.
Eating up whatever he could.
Which I'm sure you're going to expound on too, but lots of references to like Looney Tunes and like I noticed specifically sound effects. I think Hanna-Barbera specifically. I noticed those sound effects because they reused that library of sound.
It definitely feels that way.
And a lot of them,
There's a whole lot of overlap with Looney Tunes and this movie, which is just so wild. I've seen it described as if Bugs Bunny starred in a Disney movie.
Yeah, and that's true.
It's not even a Disney movie, but that's like the air of it.
Because like part of the gist here is that Turner founded, or he hired the person who founded Cartoon Network. Mm-hmm. So for anybody who needs a tie-in to like what we've been talking about, it's Cartoon Network specifically.
Warner Brothers.
So
Hanna-Barbera. I have personally been so excited about covering this one. Like you said, it was one of the original movies that I pitched to you about, okay, we need to have a podcast about this stuff.
You showed it to me the same night you showed me the Hexus Toxic Love
video. And Big and Loud.
Yes. Those were the two things you showed me, and I was
everything.
Like, sold. We can do a podcast about this stuff. Let's do it.
There's enough there. And yes, I'm so excited to be bringing that to the show.
Yeah, full circle.
While it was considered somewhat of a box office bomb due to a very tragic, in my opinion, lack of promotion, Cats Don't Dance has a really special history to me personally.
Not surprised.
Because up until this week, I thought that this was the first film that I ever saw in theaters.
Okay.
But I did make the fatal mistake of bringing that up to my parents this week. And now I stand corrected, because the first movie that I ever saw in theaters was Cliffhanger with Sylvester Stallone when I was about 6 months old. So
what a waste. What a waste.
Yep, I was 6 months old. My mom said it doesn't count because I didn't actually see any of it.
No, that doesn't count at all.
But that is the first film that I saw, or I was in a theater for. So
yeah, no, it doesn't count.
I can't.
I mean, that's like when I say the first album I ever bought was All Killer No Filler. Sum 41. I can't prove that it was the first album I owned, but it's the first one I remember buying with my own money. Yeah.
The first album that I remember buying with my own money was Hilary Duff's Metamorphosis.
Okay, there you go. There you go.
So, checks out. But it felt like, it's always... Sorry, how do I even get back to this?
You bring up Sum 41, there's just no way to transition back in. It's like...
You can't get out of it. Once you're in it, you're in too deep. You know what I mean?
Oh, God, that was nice. That was good.
Thank you. I am proud of myself. Okay. As for Cats Don't Dance, though, it is the first film that I can actually remember seeing in theaters, because I was about to turn 6 years old at the time, and my late uncle, who I've told you all before, was a big influence in both mine and my dad's life of loving movies and books and stories in general, actually took me to see this movie. So it was the first time that he took me out somewhere, just he and I.
That's cool. It's a nice memory.
And when you consider that the whole thing is a love letter, despite the very valid criticisms that it leverages to old Hollywood and the idea of filmmaking and performing in general, the idea of art, of creating hope and connection and joy where it wasn't before, even if you don't make it or even if you can't do it perfectly. And I felt like this whole idea really shaped a lot of things about my life.
I see it. That makes sense.
And y'all know I'm into synchronicity like that.
Yeah, for sure. That's sort of the name of our own personal game. It's just like, do it anyway.
Exactly.
Do the best you can. And just like...
do it anyway, make it, because nobody else is going to.
Yeah.
And that's the message that we definitely want to perpetuate to you all, our dear darklings.
Or if you don't, somebody else will, so it might as well be you, which is kind of
that's way more Christian's brand, yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't, you better you better hurry up, because...
there's two wolves inside of me. There's that one.
As we know.
And then there's the one that says, if you don't do it, it definitely won't happen. For sure. That's the only guaranteed way it won't happen, is if you don't even try. So you might as well go for it.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself.
And I feed both wolves equally.
The other wolf is...
that if you don't do it, somebody else will before you can do it. Yeah, okay.
That's what I thought. I don't know if you directly addressed that wolf.
Yeah, I pet him on a regular basis.
So,
Mike Flanagan, you bastard.
Let's get ourselves back on track and start out with a summary.
Let's do it.
And I actually wrote one this time.
Wow, how long has it been?
Quite a while. In 1939, Danny, an ever-optimistic cat, eschews the safety and obscurity of Kokomo, Indiana, to pursue his dreams of stardom in Hollywood. Upon arrival, he meets a ragtag cast of fellow animals, each a bit more jaded than the next, trying to find their own path to the spotlight. While strutting his stuff, Danny makes enemies with not only the object of his affection, Sawyer, but the rising starlet of the first film in which he's been cast, Darla Dimple. Musical, strangely biblical hijinks follow the troupe as they attempt to not only navigate, but win over a world that wasn't built for them, and also not lose themselves in the process.
Is there really a Kokomo? Was it Indiana?
Yeah, it's in Indiana.
Darla
says Nebraska.
Bermuda,
nope, there is a city of Kokomo, Indiana.
Key Largo, Montego.
Baby, why don't we go? Kokomo, Indiana has a population of just around 60,000 people. So hello if you're in Kokomo.
What's up, Kokomo? Say hey.
Of course, a film so steeped in the unjust nature of show business could easily come off as bitter, but for all of the truth that it holds, I believe this story balances and appropriately caricatures the stereotypes and hard knocks, right along with the starry-eyed wonder and hopefulness that underscores an American Hollywood experience.
Yeah.
I think it manages to stay relatable, even for those of us who are just on the fringes of Hollywood legacy.
Do you know if they were going for any, like, allegory overtones?
You were getting way ahead of me, sir.
Okay.
You are just
You knew what I was
chomping
going
at
to
the bit.
ask before I even processed what I was saying.
There's
right.
much to be said, and we will say as much of it as we can.
That's why I just wanted to ask the question, because I didn't know. I was like, am I reading too much into this?
Nope, you're not.
What am I watching?
You're right on track. You're reading exactly what was written
Because
for you to read.
I still feel insecure about a lot of my takes and stances on Little Nemo and Slumberland, even though
you
we
just
had...
wanted to check up front and see if you
we
were,
had at
like,
least
off
one
base.
person say, no, you hit the mark. You're on
1,
base.
2 at least, So, I mean, if 2 people agree with you, then you basically nailed it. So how did it all come to be?
How did it?
I have a cat trying to jump into my lap right as we speak.
He's like, tell me cats don't dance. You gonna watch me cut a rug? I'm gonna cut your thighs.
Mm-hmm. And he does, and he will.
I've had a lot of
Forevermore.
phantom scratches all over me recently, and I think my cats are walking on me in my sleep,
I could see that.
and it's not waking me up,
I mean,
which is the more startling of the two.
yeah, I would be more concerned with like a sleep disorder. The Cats Don't Dance concept was greenlit in 1993 as a partially animated, partially live-action film based upon studio cats that were fed by film crew and stagehands. These fabled kitties lived among the sets and Warner Brothers backlots, with stories about these cat colonies going back through productions like Casablanca, East of Eden, and The Music Man.
Oh, wow.
But where did they come from? Were they truly just stray cats? Of course, I had to dig into this, and I found a site called Cats at the Studios, which shared some history on the subject.
It's a real thing. I mean, I'm not surprised there were cats outside these studios because there are cats everywhere, but I'm surprised that there's an entire website dedicated to it.
Well, I'll tell you why.
That's really funny to
In
me.
1931, legend has it that the movie magnate Jack Warner found himself with a temperamental star on his hands. While filming Public Enemy No. 1, James Cagney found his favorite wool cap destroyed by dirty rats that had inhabited his dressing room.
Oh.
Cagney stormed into Warner's office and fumed. Everyone in the world knows the best exterminator of rats is the cat. You
Is
ain't
the
seeing me
cat.
back here till I hear some meowing. The same day, Warner paid a visit to the local animal shelter and returned to the studio with a limousine full of cats. He placed a tin can in his office called the Kitty Kitty, like the kitty.
The kitty, got
to
it.
collect donations for the new studio employees.
So the cats were considered employees?
They were.
They hired these cats?
They were hired. They were hired help to keep the dressing rooms free of rats. So like 50 years later, in 1984, a group of studio employees decided that something had to be done for the growing number of stray cats in their workplace because, they multiply.
Yeah,
So
they're breeding at a
Cats at the
faster rate.
Studios, or Cats Inc. acronym, was born. It's a nonprofit organization whose caregivers have picked up where Warner left off with these descendants of those original studio cats. So, for the past 40 years, Cats Incorporated has ensured that all cats living in the studio backlots are spayed and neutered, vaccinated, and provided with any needed medical care, and are daily provided with fresh food and water. They also adopt tame cats into new homes and operate as a rescue now, serving other parts of LA. So, bravo, Cats
That's
Inc.
awesome.
We
These are
appreciate
some
you.
famous cats. That's really amazing.
Descendants of very famous cats. The original employees of Jack Warner.
I feel bad for all of the human beings who have gone to Hollywood in search of fame and like all this, like, the silver screen and all this stuff. And these cats
Got the
get
star
paid
treatment
to do the
limousine
work
to the studio.
on these studios. Yeah.
Isn't
these
it funny
cats
how
are
that's
crazy.
kind of the exact opposite of the allegory of the message of the movie?
Yeah, it is.
You're supposed to feel bad for the cats, Christian.
Yeah, but, I do in the movie, but not in real life. I don't know. Oh, I'd actually feel bad for cats in reality.
Yeah,
Me too.
I figured so. While these cats remained the core concept of the film, the style and direction went through a few more iterations. Kirshner did an interview with Polygon back in 2021, where he stated, "People have said that An American Tail, which remember he also produced,
Yeah.
was the beginning of the golden age of animation. Until that point, it was the highest grossing animated feature outside of Disney ever.
Wow, really?
With Cats Don't Dance, I really wanted to do another musical of that kind. So he kind of had it in his head from the beginning that he wanted to do a musical and make it feel the same way.
Yeah, all right.
The next fact that I found out actually kind of shocked me, because this film was also originally pitched as an animated vehicle for Michael Jackson, who was going to produce, star, and consult on the music and choreography. That would have been a totally different film.
I don't have any words.
Totally different. I'm picturing something between Thriller and the Aristocats.
Okay.
Because they were first being imagined as like less anthropomorphic. They were going to be like on all fours.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's all I can see is like cats on all fours doing the Thriller dance.
I can actually visualize that, and I like what I see. But
it's unfortunate we'll never know. Because
I like Thriller meets Aristocats. I don't like that applied to Cats Don't Dance.
You want Cats Don't Dance to be what it was.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been
this be a whole separate concept.
I don't think it would have been as good. I think it would have been really weird.
I'm right there with you. I think that like there may be room for it, there may be space for it, but I don't think this was the space. So I am happy that it ended up being.
That would be something different. But yeah, that's so weird in my head.
I feel like animating cats on all fours would be a lot harder to choreograph too. You have like two whole other feet in the mix.
Hey, well.
I don't know. Anyway, the stars didn't align, and by 1994, Michael had bowed out of the project, and this left a little bit more wiggle room to reimagine this fictional world. According to Wikipedia, it was then that producers David Kirshner and Paul Gertz began to pursue something closer to classical musical films like Singin' in the Rain.
Nice.
This 1930s Hollywood backdrop seemed to really inspire them and gave way to a very strong allegory. It became a vehicle to spotlight the trials of those who didn't look or sound mainstream and their plight to gain attention in Hollywood in the late 1930s. And this allegorical intent is something we will come back to several times in part 2.
All right.
The star of today's Cats Don't Dance story, though, is a guy named Mark Dindal. Kirshner met Mark while he was working on The Rocketeer as an effects animator and called on him to fill the director's chair. To Polygon, Kirshner said that the moment he interviewed Mark, he knew he was the person that he'd been looking for. Dindal said, "When I grew up, I was influenced first by Disney movies. I think my grandmother took me to see Sword in the Stone when I was 3, which might have been one of the first influences to set me down that path. Then I was exposed to the Warner Brothers cartoons on Saturday morning TV at the time, so I think those were the 2 biggest influences for me. Probably Cats Don't Dance reflects kind of a blending of what I liked about both of those styles." He knew like what he wanted, not only what he liked, but what he wanted to make.
Yeah, for sure.
Dindal was antsy to direct a feature film, and while Disney executives were generally supportive, Mark was actually quite young at the time. Mark said to Animation World magazine, "At 28, of course you want to go from an effects supervisor to a director right away. There's not a whole lot of patience, and I probably had even less than the usual person." He was only 28 years old. And it is so weird for me to think how people younger than us pioneered the modern animation world, and how there aren't 28-year-old directors these days, because these guys are still at it in their 50s and 60s.
I hate to think about people younger than me having this much success. It's difficult.
It's tough. It's a hard pill to swallow.
It's difficult.
Existentially speaking.
Yeah.
It makes me, equal parts happy and sad, I think, because it means that something's being perpetuated beyond me, and I like the thought of that. Dindal was another graduate of the famed Cal Arts that we've talked about a few times, and he went on immediately after this to direct one of the most quotable Disney films, The Emperor's New Groove, as well as Chicken Little. Up to this point, he'd worked on many Disney projects as an effects animator and also led the special effects for several films, including The Little Mermaid and The Rescuers Down Under.
Wow. The
funnest fact about Mark related to Cats Don't Dance, though, is that he's also the iconic voice of Max, Darla's bodyguard. Because by the point in the production that they needed to hire an actor for the part, they were out of money. So they just kept his scratch track in place.
So how is he so perfect?
He was perfect.
Voicing this character?
In multiple interviews, he was like, it was just a temporary track. It was just a scratch track. I'm like, then why did you nail it?
Yeah, then why is it so good?
If you didn't want to be the character, why did you nail it? It's not that he didn't want to. It's just they literally ran out of money. And I'm like, that is the voice that rings in my ears. That's the voice other than Darla's. That's the voice I think of when I think of this movie.
That's the only voice. Yeah.
It's kind of a huge deal. So I love that, he got his little cameo as a director.
And it's funny because, even like in the movie itself, the casting agency is talking about how they just fill roles when there's nobody available.
And that's what they did.
Which I was thinking, like, is that such a real thing? Does that actually happen? I have no idea.
I mean, I feel like it probably does in certain circumstances.
I don't know if it's the casting director, but it's definitely somebody on the production.
I mean,
but who knows?
Stands to reason that the casting director would cast a role
themselves.
We'll get to the rest of the cast soon.
Fair enough.
Dindal is credited as helping the plot steer away from a Lady and the Tramp place where it apparently started, and it helped to solidify this Bugs Bunny approach where humanoid animals coexist with actual humans. And like Mark Dindal said, nobody goes, I can't believe I'm talking to a rabbit, because he felt like this type of world offered the most comedic potential.
I do like that, yeah. It works well.
This decision also locked the core conflict of the film into place, because it went to the notion of being typecast simply by what you appear to be on the outside.
Hollywood at its core.
Dindal said that the characters in Cats Don't Dance have a very distinct physicality, which plays into their physical humor. And it's notably different from a film like The Lion King, where the animals talk but do walk around on all fours, while still behaving mostly like animals would. But in Cats Don't Dance, where animals occupy human spaces, they wear clothes, play instruments, have careers, and otherwise behave in human-like ways alongside humans. And this lends itself to a different set of logic. Mark felt this type of logic was far more ripe for comedy.
Yeah, makes sense.
Around the same time, Brian McKenty joined the project as the art director. Brian had also art directed for a little film called Beauty and the Beast, and worked in the animation department for Brave Little Toaster.
Oh, nice. Okay.
The overlap between the animators, artists, and story development felt very unique to me on this project, because quite a lot of folks got story by credits, including Mark Dindal and Brian McKenty themselves.
I noticed that.
Other contributors include Rick Calabash, who began his career as a teenager designing sets for Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and went on to work with William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, developing content for Tom and Jerry, The Flintstones, The Jetsons, and Scooby-Doo.
It's nuts.
It seems that Rick was also the glue that brought Michael Jackson into the picture, because he had developed other projects with Michael for Turner Pictures.
Wow. When I was a teenager, I was just like playing sports and trying to make good grades.
It's still so weird to me that you played sports in school. I don't know why. I have a really hard time integrating that into the version of you that I know.
Me too. Yeah, he was a lost cause, for sure.
Not that it's bad to play sports, it just doesn't seem like you to me.
It isn't bad to play sports. It's weird when it becomes your entire personality.
I would agree with that. It's weird when anything becomes your entire personality.
I guess that's true.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's the main takeaway.
One of them, yes, I think so.
For me, it's ghosts and coffee and whiskey, but...
Well, that's still 3 things.
Oh, you mean like one thing specifically?
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Oh.
You don't ever want it to be just
I agree.
one thing.
I agree. Like people whose like racism is their entire personality.
Yes.
I know a lot of those people.
Me too. You don't want that. Robert Lentz, credited with story work on Beauty and the Beast, and interestingly also the Toy Story animated storybook PC game that I played nonstop in like 1995 or 6.
I feel like I've played
Do you remember that?
Actually. Yeah, I think it was,
It was a very specific memory, but as soon as I read the credit, I was like, oh my God, this was my personality for a period of time.
That's really funny.
It did become my personality. Robert was also a storyboard artist for The Rescuers Down Under, Page Master, Anastasia, Lion King 2, Shrek, Atlantis, Ice Age, Lilo and Stitch, and more.
God damn.
I know. It's a lineup.
Name dropping right there.
And lastly, as far as story by credits, we have David Wormersley, who was a background and layout artist for Five Goes West, Once Upon a Forest, Page Master, and eventually production design and art direction for the Frozen franchise.
His career really hit a wall, didn't it?
Yep. Talk about nowhere to go, but downhill.
Yeah, just down the slopes.
As for the true screenplay, credits are widely distributed there as well between Bob Scanaway, who was a writer for several Disney spin-off series, including Timon and Pumbaa, 101 Dalmatians, and tons of Stitch projects, and Teresa Cullen, who is another accomplished storyboard artist for many similar titles. And rounding out the list of screenplay credits, none other than Cliff Ruby and Elena Lesser, who we discussed during Balto.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Clearly, the story and the dialogue were an incredibly collaborative effort on this one. And looking at all of those credits, I have to say this movie feels a hell of a lot more cohesive than it could.
I liked this movie from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't say that about a lot of the things that we have covered.
It makes me really impressed with Mark Dindal because clearly he took a lot of, we always hear that the best directors want to collaborate with their team. The best directors listen to their, fellow artists and even the animators and, everybody that's involved with the project. They trust everybody to have this vision.
Yeah.
We always hear that, but it's really hard to execute that well. There's a reason that there's a phrase, there's too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But when you have a good director, apparently it can still work.
I didn't even mind that it was a musical.
Well, I have so many questions to ask you about that.
Okay.
We'll get there.
I mean, I did keep thinking of Zootopia the entire movie.
I referenced Zootopia as well.
I have only good things to say about Zootopia. I was so
Zootopia is great.
Not excited to watch it, but when I did, was so impressed.
And
but
there are a lot of parallels there.
I feel like this movie made Zootopia possible.
Cats don't dance walked, so Zootopia could run.
And literally all the movies, not hand-drawn, but computer animated from this point forward using animals, I think this sort of is a template in some ways.
And I kind of like it because it's the link between the slapstick Looney Tunes cartoon and the animated feature film that makes you feel something.
I think you're right.
And that is because of Mark Dindal.
And it's funny how, you saw this movie as a kid. It's part of your history. So to you, this is probably a very well-known film. In my world, this is not a well-known film. I'd never heard of it. So I feel like it's very little known.
I think it's not as well known as it should be.
Comparatively, right. It should be more well known because there are some movies we've covered that are not very well known because they flopped and they didn't do good. And they're dark, but they're not great movies.
Sure.
This is a really great movie.
It is. I'm really glad you feel that way. I've been
I think
nervous
it's really
for Christian's
good.
review, y'all, but
and I'm getting
we impressed him with something. Can you believe it?
I feel boring because I'm tired of saying that I don't love the movies we're covering.
I know.
Little Nemo. I love the whole entire concept. Not a great movie.
Right.
But this one, I'm pleased to say, I enjoyed.
I'm really glad.
Yeah.
And I did too. As many times as I watched it, I still had a good time.
And I chose to watch this last night over Late Night with the Devil. So,
hey, I've been meaning to watch that. I really want to.
And I wasn't mad. I was happy.
It was important that you watch this before the episode. So
it was either last night at midnight or it was first thing this morning while I had my coffee and just enjoyed a morning viewing of a cartoon.
It's a morning time kind of movie.
It is. Yeah, I would have been happy either way. But
I do also want to make sure while we're discussing the crew to shout out the effects animator, Kelvin Yasuda, who also got a story by credit because Kelvin worked effects on so many of our pretty dark favorites.
Really?
Black Cauldron, Great Mouse Detective, Oliver and Company, Little Mermaid, Rescuers Down Under, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin.
Phew.
Even visual development on The Lion King.
Shoot.
I feel like so much of the magic and the feel of these films comes down to the effects, and Kelvin shaped what that looked like for a solid decade of animation.
Yeah, that's amazing. If I worked on one of those movies, it would make my life.
And speaking of effects, Dindal, Kirshner, and McKenty were all proponents of the improving animation technology of the time and were excited to see how it could be incorporated with the traditional animation in Cats Don't Dance.
I noticed that some of the animation looked computer generated.
It does, because it was.
Mostly the big motion sequences with the bus and the cars and probably the ship.
This is something that we're going to talk about again with The Great Mouse Detective, probably a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like at the time it was almost a rite of passage for each of these productions to say we did this sequence in in computer animation, or we did this, we chose to have this big moment.
Yeah.
And I think, of course, Great Mouse Detective did it first, but these guys weren't too far behind them. We're thinking they're early 90s producing this.
Right, same era as Dilworth with Courage the Cowardly Dog. He was trying to implement new layers of animation.
He was a little bit later in the 90s, but yeah.
99.
It's definitely
98, 99.
It was not only the evolution of the computer technology, but the evolution of artists learning how to use and harness it properly.
Yeah, we can't all be Casper. Spielberg with Casper, just perfecting.
Just simply perfect. And that was 95, so he had some shit figured out from the jump. In a parallel that I liked, Mark Dindal said, one of the things that stuck in my mind after we spoke with people who'd been a part of Hollywood's golden age was the number of times they described an effect or a stunt that they'd never done before. They said, we just did it, and if it worked, we left it. We see
Wow.
this entrepreneurial, innovative attitude come back time and time again in the makings of a lot of our pretty dark titles. Whatever the new idea or the new technology is, I like that it's those people who are pursuing that path of discovery who we always end up mentioning on the show.
I do feel like this is a conversation we keep having about this kind of thing. It's really cool. I mean, I guess that's what the 90s were, though, wasn't it?
It is what the 90s were. It makes me so just nostalgic for that early computer era.
Yeah.
I think about it a lot in my own life with like early internet, you know. You're never going to get that back. Like this beast has evolved so far beyond those things. And back then it was just it was a tool rather than a way of life.
Right.
And so we're nostalgic for the time when it was just a tool.
For sure. For sure.
Producer Paul Gertz said, "We watched dozens of old movie musicals to get the tone of our story right, the rhythms of speech, body language, and story conventions. And in the process of watching all these fabulous dance numbers, it occurred to us that we could at least ask Gene Kelly if he'd give us some advice on the creation of our own dances. To our delight, he was so taken by what the story suggested that he committed immediately."
That's cool. I saw there was like a special thanks to him.
The film was dedicated to him.
Yeah, yeah.
Kirshner said that Gene could barely walk at this point in his life, and he did most of his directing, if you could call it that, from a chair. But his hand in the movements and the dancing, which you heard it here first, folks. Cats do dance, by the way, remained integral to the project. About Gene, Dindal said, "It wasn't like he would demonstrate steps or anything. We talked more about the philosophy of approaching musicals and what they were originally thinking back when these musicals were being made." Dindal said it was interesting because Gene said, "Now we're in a very analytical age because there are so many books to read and films to watch. But one thing that Gene pushed for example, is that he wanted Danny and Sawyer's characters to interact similarly to Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, who starred in many a film of the 30s era."
Yeah. Wow.
So they had somebody that was kind of on the inside, bringing this history forward.
That is
to the 90s.
I'm like almost speechless because I think that's just so cool.
It is so cool.
I'm just sort of like,
I love that they asked. I love that they just went for it. They're like, well, I mean, Gene Kelly's just, what's the worst he's going to say? No.
He's the guy.
Luckily he didn't. And you can see it. I mean, you can see and feel it. And again, this movie is just so personal to me, and going back to like this one and Balto, doing these two almost back to back, it's almost heavy for me because they were so important to me as a child.
Right.
And looking back at this, I can feel how these stories, elements, the conventions that he said, all of it is from the 1930s or before. Yeah. And it was something that was so like important to me as a child in the 90s, and just the way that the history of the art just moves through all of it. What we're doing, it moves through me and what I do and what I create now, and the way that I think and the way that I see the world. Like Balto kind of helped shape how I see the world. Cats Don't Dance also helped shape how I see the world. It helped shape how I see Hollywood.
How you view like entertainment from Hollywood.
How I view entertainment.
Like movies.
The tropes, we're going to see so many that this just cemented it in my brain.
It's so interesting. I feel like I feel like I keep saying this over and over again, but like how many things from the 90s reference back to that golden age, like to specifically animation with Looney Tunes
it's
and all the stuff,
about nostalgia.
Which was directly referencing the films and the actors, the golden age of Hollywood at the time it was happening.
Yes.
I mean, these archetypes.
It's all about nostalgia. This is nostalgia from the 90s being nostalgic for the 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
But as we'll talk about, obviously, nothing was perfect. You know, we're nostalgic for the beauty of it that we saw. But obviously, there was a whole lot of darkness, too, that we're glad we've overcome.
Oddly enough, so much of this comes through Turner and Cartoon Network. And like that whole lineage of like the Hanna-Barbera, you know, Warner Brothers, Looney Tunes, all this stuff. Just sort of like carrying you through these generations all the way up through the 90s because Turner said, I have a bunch of cartoons that I have all these MGM library, I have all this stuff.
And they became not theatrical cartoons that our grandparents were watching in the theater, but Saturday morning cartoons that we watched as kids that now kids, you know, stream even.
And they're just sort of recycled and repurposed, and now everything is referencing that whole era. But it's like, even in this movie about old Hollywood, it's doing the same thing, using what's in its library already there, accessible. They just open a door, pull something out and say, we'll just use this because we have it already, and also because it's a perfect reference.
It's a way, exactly. You're paying homage at the same time that you're repurposing content that is in your library.
It's just so cool to me. I don't understand. Like,
Are y'all excited? Because we're excited.
I don't
If you
get it.
can't
I'm
tell,
like,
this is our shit.
whew.
We get real excited about this.
I don't even know how to put it into words. I feel like a rambling idiot.
Me too. Same. I felt so. Christian has been hearing that I've been writing these notes. I've been working on these notes for over a month now, and I kept finding things. Of course, it's going to become very evident to you guys in part 2 that I just went all out. I was like, if I'm going to talk about Hollywood, I'm going to talk about MF and Hollywood.
I'm glad you did. MFing.
MFing. Because I felt like this is my opportunity to really showcase what about movies is meaningful, to me. What about the idea of Hollywood is meaningful to me.
Totally.
And I hope that a lot of you guys relate and understand.
It's just so cool.
Unfortunately, Gene did pass away during post-production, which made Cats Don't Dance his final project. And in honor of that, the film was dedicated to him.
Ah, how about that?
Of the dancing, Mark Dindal talked about it by saying Disney musicals rarely made big shows of the dancing specifically. The characters sing as they run through forests or train to be heroes or revel in their villainous master plans. Yeah. But in Cats Don't Dance, the characters do dance. In the opening sequence, Danny spins around Hollywood on his way to a talent agency. In a particularly vibrant scene, he rallies the animals to dance together in order to show the humans that they're capable of performing. It's all very fluid. There's a lot of motion and there's a lot of dance.
What a great double feature movie night. Watch Cats Don't Dance and then watch La La Land.
A lot of people have been saying, is Cats Don't Dance just La La Land?
Yeah.
And there are certainly
just watch them back to back.
Parallels to be made and lines to be drawn there, but
be a good time.
We all recognize that as much as we love the idea of Hollywood and the glitz and glitter, as Tower of Terror would say, obviously it's not all glitz and glitter.
Especially not Tower of Terror. God, I want to ride that ride so bad right now.
God, I would give anything. The connection to dancing is really interesting to me also because we grew up in a very, I'll say, sheltered or repressed way. Dancing was not something that I was allowed to do. Exactly. I was never allowed to dance. And I don't say that in a bitter way necessarily, but sometimes I do feel like I missed out on connecting with my body because dance was so forbidden. It was so evil, like the idea of dancing.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of people, there are some people that relate to that, but to a lot of people, that's a foreign concept. Like there's no stigma around dance at all. And I think it's a really valuable way for kids and human beings to connect and get in touch with their body and to feel connected with that movement, that rhythm. It's obviously it's ancient. It's an ancient art form. The earliest humans, danced. And I really like that they do kind of put the spotlight on that. And I can only imagine how difficult it was to do that in an animated film.
For real.
But they went for it. Again, they just decided the only way to know is to try.
Yeah.
And I think that's so cool.
Yeah, there's video evidence of me and my sister and my cousins doing a choreographed dance to an NSYNC song.
I would love to see this.
When we were children.
See, that was the kind of dance when I was very, very young that I could get away with if I was very careful about it and you don't move your hips. I was partial to S Club. So S Club 7, S Club 8 for anybody that really wants to go down a rabbit trail. S Club 8 was the iteration after S Club 7. And I memorized with my friend Amber. I think she listens to the podcast. Hi, Amber, if you're listening.
What's up, Amber?
She would teach me, I was 9th grade at this point, right? So a kid essentially, but still so afraid to dance and didn't know how to do it or what I was doing. But she would teach me the routines.
She taught you some salacious moves.
They weren't at all. The routines from the S Club
jazz hands
music videos. But I just remember how fun that was because it felt so
jazz hands.
I loved feeling connected to the way that makes you feel connected to other people, the way that it unifies people. I don't know. I think
I dance alone in my house.
A girl who never got to dance talking about how cool dance is, because as much as I love music and that music is if one thing was going to be my personality, it would be music. If we were going to narrow it down.
Yeah.
And
I think that's fair.
If I had had more exposure to or ability to dance, I think that would have been pretty cool for me. But I'm glad the cats get to do it.
I think it would probably be very healing for you in a lot of ways if you just took dance lessons or something.
I've started taking voice lessons because I'm this matters to me and I never got to do it. So I think you're right. It probably would.
I think that would be awesome.
First up, physical therapy and then maybe some dancing. We'll see. You know how my body likes to treat me.
Oh, I'm going to have a knee replacement in my left knee for sure. It has been hurting me for months.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is.
Happy
It's
birthday.
Very, very much so. Yep, turning 33 in a few days. Can't wait.
I don't like that you're 33 because that means I'll be 32. Anyway.
Yeah, sorry for you. Sorry.
You should be. My body's aging far worse than yours, so.
I have silver chest hair. I don't think you're aging worse than me.
I have a streak. Somebody told me they thought it was on purpose. I was like, nope, that's just my hair. What is it? Storm?
Tell them you're an X-Men, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
No, Rogue. Well, Storm had silver hair, but Rogue had the
was
silver.
the streak.
She
That's
has the
right.
streaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, get it right, stupid idiot.
Pardon me. I know. Darklings are yelling at me. So sorry.
Do you even like
It's been a long time.
superheroes?
Remember, that's the whole point. We're old now.
What was the 90s? When was that?
As with so many non-Disney films of the time, like we just spoke about with Little Nemo even, the producers, particularly Kirshner, who remained the common ground as Turner Animation was tossed about by the winds of change during this time period, were eager for another opportunity to give Disney a run for their money. It always feels to me, as we talk through these moments, like they're assembling the Avengers, trying to figure out the exact right lineup to achieve
Speaking of
greatness.
superheroes.
I know. I didn't even plan that.
And they're
Do you
always
guys like
trying to
that?
like challenge Disney as though Disney is the, the super villain of the whole
Disney's
animation
the big
world.
boss. Disney's the final boss. And, Kirshner did say in interviews that they never really intended or expected to compete with Disney or on that level, but I feel like he was always going for it.
Right.
It was always David and Goliath, and I feel like it was at least sort of a motivating factor to his career, even if subconsciously.
Sure.
And like I said, trying to assemble a team that would, get them to that next level.
Right. I mean,
He did a hell of a job with this movie because
I was going to say
he was absolutely spot on correct about Mark Dindal.
he's got an array of films that are very well remembered and they're really great films. And
Page Master,
yeah,
one of my
I
favorites.
It's like Play-Doh set.
Even Ferngully.
We don't strive for perfection because we can achieve it, but because we can be our best selves if we attempt perfection. That's how you achieve your best, your
Right.
highest.
You shoot for the moon. If you fall, you might catch a star.
Even if you miss, you'll land among the stars.
90s quote-ify your Play-Doh.
I saw that in so many teachers.
Oh, yeah.
That poster like that in so many teachers'
school.
classrooms. Yeah, in school.
Well, they were just trying to teach you Play-Doh.
Right up next to Mrs. Hewitt's haunted chalkboard.
Sounds like a story for another day.
That was when she was reading to us the 13 Alabama Ghost and Jeffrey.
I was literally just about to say that sounds like a story for our
Yeah.
Patreon. And little did I know.
It's on our Patreon already.
That one is.
I talk about that in the intro to that reading series.
It's funny.
$5 a month. Patreon.com/TPD podcast.
So this tight-knit team is working to create something bigger than themselves, something greater than the sum of its parts. And as production goes on, Turner changed hands a couple times, and the executive suggestions and the commentary became increasingly overbearing on this Avengers team. I think in part to quell this external chatter, the spirits in the TFA offices stayed high by way of projects like the Kitty Letters. This was an underground in-house newsletter where the production crew let off steam by way of both cartoons and commentary.
Okay.
Many of these Kitty Letters are available to view today thanks to CDD4ever, the number 4, ever.com.
So we have the Kitty and we have the Kitty Letters.
Mm-hmm. Kitty
Okay.
was Warner, but yes, the Kitty Letters was the newsletter. This website even has photos from the Cats Don't Dance rap party.
What? I bet that's fun.
It's just fun. It's really great. And honestly, this is one of the coolest things I've uncovered as we've been doing research like this. And I wish more productions had these sorts of records that were like publicly available, because I feel like this was a true glimpse behind the scenes of making Cats Don't Dance.
Sure.
One Kitty Letter cartoon depicts a Frankenstein-esque laboratory with Sawyer as the bride of Frankenstein, Michigan J. Frog, the mascot of Warner Brothers, strapped to the table, and Gerald Levin, the Time Warner guy, shouting, "Turner is not dead, it's alive! I have reanimated it."
Wow.
Animated was underscored. Yeah.
That's clever.
Another shows Sawyer in Catwoman getup, and it's captioned Catwoman, and then crossed out. Woman cat, and then crossed out. Cat, and then crossed out, and then whatever. Another cartoon shows
man.
Danny saying trick or treat dressed as Darla Dimple.
That's fun. That's fun.
And yet another depicts Max as Homer Simpson, asking, "How does the kitty cat go?" before saying no.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to see him.
I'll show them to you.
You should post these on our Instagram.
I could, yeah, actually. There's also a poem from the Kitty Letters entitled The Ballad of TFA. It's penned by an unknown author, which I have my suspicions. I'm suspect. I have my suspicions.
Yes.
That it's Kirshner. I was so focused on saying his name right that I just have another word.
Suspect.
This is from July 3rd, 1996, outlining the history of Turner feature animation with notable lines mentioning David's original Pagemaster deal, them asking Ted for $30 million to expand the animation department, and Ted exclaiming, "What the Also, poor Danny could never cut a reel because every day there was someone new at the wheel." I'm just reading lines because it's a long ballad, but it's good.
Yeah, okay.
Another line is, "Then old Uncle Ted shouted from his corner, 'Let's get in bed with the brothers Warner.'" It ends with a really nice stanza. "When the dust all settles from this 4.5-year haze, I think we may all look back on these years as the good old days."
How poignant.
And I can only imagine what it must have been like to be part of that crew for that period of time and then to read that in context in the Kitty Letter sometime around the wrap of the production.
They sound fun.
They do, don't they?
They sound fun.
I've always thought an animation studio would be a really fun place to work, but obviously, hearing from David Stephen Cohen and others, it's sometimes a lot of pressure, or more than sometimes. It's pretty much always high pressure, but I think it's equal parts pressure and venting. You have all this comedy, you have all this talent, this artistic talent.
Yeah, but you can do it in such a clever way
Exactly.
with like your illustrations and your comics, and so much better than how people use social media to vent nowadays.
You looking at me? As this team fought for each milestone, Dindal said there were some drastic executive suggestions, like changing it from the 40s era to the 1950s rock and roll, pretty much in the middle of the movie. He said it's pretty hard to try and keep what you finished so far and then suddenly transition into a different period of time or introduce a different character or have a completely different ending that doesn't fit the beginning that you already have.
Kind of like the complete tone shift in Watcher in the Woods.
Kind of like that. Yeah. I mean, we've covered a few things where it's like, whoa, came out of left field with that, whether it's like the whole second half of the movie or just like a scene, but...
Need to wrap this up real quick.
Right? Even with this outside influence, I feel like it was a very specific vision, underscored with true appreciation for the concept that they started with. Dindal continued, 5 years was a long time to be hanging with that, and so it was a labor of love. All of us really liked it, the core concept.
Yeah.
We wanted to make a movie that wasn't just an edgy cartoon, even though they kept pushing that. It was a family movie, and not Beavis and Butthead.
Right.
I don't have that taste, I don't have that desire to do that. This is what I would like to do. This comment on Dindal's part was really interesting to me, seeing as we are here 27 years later discussing this film on a podcast called That's Pretty Dark. And I think, while not irreverent like a Beavis and Butthead, obviously, this film absorbed or maybe necessitated with the executive commentary its own edge and its own shade of pretty darkness, which I look forward to breaking down with all of you.
Oh, I can't wait.
In part 2. Throughout the tumultuous waves of change, yes, that was intentional, Dindal and the gang stuck to their guns to make something that they could be proud of, and I believe it was the music that helped to carry this project through to completion.
Time for the music.
Music time. Music time.
Music time. We just took a break and we talked all about music for like 8.5 minutes.
We did. We talked about music for like 10 minutes.
But
it was great.
We're not going to share that with you.
Ocean Avenue.
Red Jumpsuit Apparatus. Yeah.
As far as Cats Don't Dance, musician Steve Goldstein composed most of the score. From what I could find, he'd primarily done live-action projects otherwise, including writing and producing We Are Not Alone from The Breakfast Club, and several songs from a Dr. Seuss TV movie, and scoring The Birdcage, which is a lovely film.
Just makes me think of You're Not Alone by Seosin Salson.
Makes me think of We're Not Alone from Son of Dork. Do you know that song?
No.
We're not alone. It's all about UFOs. It's really great.
Oh.
Son of Dork is an incredible British band if you've never heard of them. From that, talk about pop punk like royalty. That was the epitome of music to me in high school.
Okay.
That album, Ticket Out of Loserville, I cannot say enough good things. As for the original tracks, when Michael Jackson's involvement in the project waned, the team brought in none other than Randy Newman, who had just rapped Toy Story.
Yeah, wow.
And this was a really good move.
Yeah, I'll say.
I don't recall if we've had a chance to immortalize Randy here on That's Pretty Dark yet, but I'll give a little trivia just in case.
We've talked about his brother before.
Is his brother David.
Brave Little Toaster.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's his brother. Let's confirm.
They're both Newmans, right?
To date, he's the only member of the Newman family who is yet to compose the score for a Pixar film. So David Newman, he got Brave Little Toaster, but not Pixar. So he was just so close.
So close.
So close.
You know, we can't all
But
be the best.
Those Newmans, they were real musical. And Randy is quite impressive as a Newman.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to dozens of other musical collaborations and feats, Newman has scored 9 Disney Pixar feature films. Toy Story, A Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, Monsters, Inc.
Yeah.
One of my personal absolute favorites.
Love it.
Cars, Toy Story 3, Monsters University, Cars 3, and Toy Story 4. He's earned at least 1 Academy Award nomination for 6 of the 9 films he scored for Pixar, winning the award for Monsters, Inc. and Toy Story 3, both times in the category of Best Original Song.
Damn.
He also did the music for one of my absolute favorite underrated Disney films, The Princess and the Frog.
That is such a good movie.
To me, Princess and the Frog is one of the best movies Disney has done in the modern era, and I cannot wait to talk about it, even though it's a little beyond the time period that we normally go for.
Yeah.
We'll have to discuss, because Princess and the Frog is incredible. And part of the reason I love the movie so much is because I love the music so much.
Like, it holds up. I rewatched it a few years ago. Yeah. Damn, it's good.
I want to rewatch it right now, frankly.
And I just looked it up.
Friends on the Other Side. I quote that all the time on the show.
I have too. I can't believe it's 2009. That's the year I graduated high school.
Yeah, I was about to say, we were in high school or college at that point. I was taking college classes.
That is a major marker in my life's timeline. And that I can't believe that. Feels like that movie came out like a few years ago.
I remember seeing it in theaters because it was around the same time as Frozen. It was pre-Frozen. But to me, I liked Frozen. I enjoyed Frozen. But I felt so frustrated that Princess and the Frog didn't get the same treatment that Frozen did because I thought it was just as good.
I agree. And that's going to be the new Splash Mountain.
Yes.
The Bayou Adventure.
They're retheming Splash Mountain and Magic Kingdom to be Tiana's Bayou Adventure.
I cannot wait to
Me neither.
write it.
I can't wait to hear the music on that ride. It's going to be so fun.
With all the voodoo.
Voodoo and things you hadn't even tried.
Hoodoo, you do.
I got friends on the other side. My voice is really shot today.
Dude, I got to watch that again soon. I'm going to watch it again.
Randy Newman is 80 years old right now.
Shit.
And that blew my mind. That just hit me in like a gut punch.
So he was already like...
And I didn't stop thinking about it for quite a while.
He was already, middle-aged when he was scoring
composing all of our childhood.
Mm-hmm. So there's still time for us.
There's always
We're not
time.
middle-aged yet. We got plenty of time.
Not quite. Close, but not quite.
We're closer to that than we are to our youths.
Ooh.
Bleh, I'm going to throw up.
Didn't need that.
I'll be right back. I'm going to go throw up.
While I have my own criticisms in that some of the songs in Cats Don't Dance do feel almost incomplete, maybe not living up to their fullest potential.
Yeah.
I think some of this issue is a holdover from earlier imaginings when the music of the film was to be written by stage folk Richard Mattleby Jr. and David Shire. Sometimes musically, I think that the final film still struggled to decide on some level whether it was trying to be a true Broadway production or Singin' in the Rain.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a subtle difference, but there's a difference.
There's a difference, yeah.
And if I had one criticism of the film musically, it would be that. I think it didn't quite pick its lane, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Because regardless, I think that the musical numbers certainly evoke the time period and the style, whichever of those styles is being emulated. The numbers are often broken into pieces to better fit into the narrative rather than stopping all forward progress for the music's sake.
Right.
And of course, we keep saying it, Big and Loud is just such a great song.
It's a great song.
And it's one of the theatrical songs I most remember singing throughout my childhood.
I was sad that it ended so soon, and then it came back with even greater force the second time around.
And it was I
was pleased.
Nothing like it. I can't help but sing it. Honestly, every song in this movie I sing along. Like, it's just one of those that I remember that well and I do sing along with.
I'm not surprised that I like the music because it's Randy Newman.
I am.
It's Randy Newman. I like Randy Newman. I think he's great.
I guess that should have clued me into the fact that you probably wouldn't totally hate it, but I was nervous. I was like, it's another musical. We just did a musical. We've done a lot of musicals. I was getting nervous as as we prepared.
The first number, I did laugh to myself because I was like, oh God, I'm gonna hate this, and I'm gonna have to tell Kaylin how much I don't like it.
Do you mean the opening credits or Danny's arrival?
His arrival.
Danny the song and Dan.
His arrival.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is one of those.
Randy's contributions to the film include Danny's arrival song,
yeah,
Little Boat on the Sea, Animal Jam Session, Big and Loud, Tell Me Lies, and Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now.
I liked the movie. I liked the music. It was still good.
You went in with trepidation.
I was relieved of the burden of having to hate this movie.
We're all relieved, Christian.
Yeah.
We're all relieved you didn't hate this movie.
You know me, I hate to make people uncomfortable and step on their toes.
Sure. Yeah, you do.
I really hate
you hate that a lot.
Put people off.
You don't do it on purpose.
Never. I've never done that once.
Mm-mm. We will talk a little bit more about Darla's songs when we get to the plot, but overall, I feel like all these numbers are really fun.
They are,
and I enjoy them.
Officially, I do too.
The opening and ending pop song, Our Time Has Come, was written by Martin Page, who worked with a ton of 80s greats, including Earth, Wind & Fire, Barbra Streisand, Heart, and Neil Diamond.
Wow.
And Martin Page also played keyboard for Ray Parker Jr. on the 1984 Ghostbusters theme song.
Okay. Well, if I didn't like it before, I do now.
To me, I'm going to get emotional. To me, Our Time Has Come is the epitome of the feeling that this movie gives me when I look back at it as a kid.
Yeah.
It combines that optimism, that youthful optimism that I had as a child, however much I had. I've never had that much of it, but man, oh man.
Right. The small
I hung
quantities.
on to what I did have of it.
Mm-hmm.
And this song really embodies that for me. You'll probably lay in some of it, I don't know, but I have some of the lyrics that the opening lyrics of the song.
Go for it, yeah.
It's so simple. It's such a simple concept. Like, off to Hollywood, gonna make it big. It's just like such a trope that we're familiar with. But I don't know. Something about 6-year-old Kaylin being in the theater and hearing this song changed my life. It just did.
I can see how it defined your personality. I'm not surprised at all.
The song goes, Our time has come. We're gonna walk in the sun. Oh, I've packed my hopes. We're ready to roll. We're on our way. With a little faith, we can step from the shadows and tell everyone, turn the spotlight on. Now our time has come. Baby
Kaylin still makes me sad to think about.
Baby Kaylin makes me sad too. Grown-up Kaylin also makes me sad as well.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But little baby Kaylin was ready to step from the shadows and tell everyone to turn the spotlight on. This is when my Leo son is just like, girl, this is who you are. You may not always like it or understand it. My Scorpio rising is like, shut the up. But my Leo son is like, that's who I am. I don't have necessarily the talent to be in the spotlight, but by golly, I'm going to turn it on,
I hear that.
I just am. The end credits song, I do believe, was written by Simon Clemmy and Will Downing.
Okay.
And this song 1000% checks the boxes of that 90s soft pop, R&B adjacent, synthy kind of ballad that we talk about being the quintessential 90s credit song.
It's in everything.
This film gets one of them, and I think it's great. The composer, Goldstein, and Randy Newman both gathered a couple nominations for Cats Don't Dance at the Annie Awards, with the latter taking home a win. So they kind of knocked it out of the park with the music here. Yeah,
they really did a good job.
In my opinion. It could have been improved, but so can everything, I think now it's time to talk about the cast.
Let's do it.
I'm going to take it in one fell swoop and just talk y'all through all of the actors in this movie. But before I get started, I do have to disclaim there are so many characters in this movie.
So many. Yeah.
There are a lot. We'll start at the beginning with Danny. Scott Beluga stars as Danny, who is probably best known for 97 episodes of Quantum Leap and 98 episodes of Star Trek Enterprise.
Okay.
He actually provided the singing voice for Danny as well, which may surprise fans of his TV characters. But he did have an extensive Broadway career before he transitioned to TV, which made him a natural fit for the role.
It makes sense, yeah.
I like his voice. It definitely takes me back to, being a kid. And
I like his singing voice.
It's nice.
I hate the, Broadway dialogue persona that a lot of actors put on. I hate the talking on Broadway.
I'm trying to imitate it, but
he kind of brings that to the table, but I like his singing voice fine.
It's a little bumbly, but I think that's more the character than his voice.
Yeah.
I think he's trying to play into the character.
Sure.
Jasmine Guy provides the speaking voice for Sawyer, who is a disenchanted Turkish Angora cat, the secretary of Farley Wink, agent to the animals. And while Jasmine is probably best known for her 143 episodes of A Different World, the Cosby Show spinoff.
Oh.
Jasmine has definitely been around the television block during her career, appearing on Fresh Prince, NYPD Blue, Living Single, Touched by an Angel, Dead Like Me, That's So Raven, and pretty prominently also on The Vampire Diaries.
That's cool.
Which I recently watched, at least the first couple seasons.
That's awesome.
You might have noticed, though, that there is quite a bit of discrepancy between her singing and her speaking voice.
Yeah.
And this is because Nancy Giles was originally cast to play the speaking voice of Sawyer, and many scenes were animated to her performance. And Jasmine Guy replaced Giles when the project was like 90% complete. So it was kind of a last-minute sub there.
Yeah, wow.
But Natalie Cole, daughter of Nat King Cole,
I was wondering.
provides Sawyer's singing vocals.
Yeah.
And this was originally to better complement Nancy Giles' voice. Even as a kid, I noticed that dissonance in the two, but they all sounded good. Personally, I love Sawyer's speaking voice. I really do. I think it's great. I think it fits the character so well, and I think it's just so nice. Like, her style of singing isn't my favorite in the world, but I do appreciate it for what it is, and it obviously fits, again, the character, the movie, the time period.
Yeah.
David Kirshner said of Natalie Cole, "There was something special about working with Natalie, who's a wonderful talent on her own and whose father Nat was a part of Hollywood's fabulous past. Somehow I think it shows up in her interpretation of the music. There's a classic charm and romance to her voice."
Absolutely.
Very nice of you to say, David. Matthew Harried plays Peebo Pudgemeyer.
Pudge.
Which made me laugh. I was like, that's a new nickname for Phoebe. Peebo Pudgemeyer. This is actually Matthew's only role, because this was a true Hollywood moment for him.
Wow, okay.
Mark Dindal shared that a group of animators were eating lunch together at an outdoor cafe one day, and a little boy came over to ask for directions. And someone answered him and he walked away. But at that exact moment, another animator blurted out, "That's Pudge, exactly." And they all realized it was true. So they chased after him and asked if he'd ever acted, which he hadn't, and if he would like to, which he would. Matthew was 11 years old at the time.
Wow.
And they just kind of brought him into the movie. Here you go.
It's a real Boris Karloff Cinderella story.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I think it's so fun.
I had those delusions of grandeur when I was a kid that I was going to be on vacation and just be like spotted by some like talent agent or like some director who was just going to like
I think a lot of us
see
had
the
that,
potential in me.
That outlook.
Specifically when we went to California for a family vacation when I was a kid.
Yes.
I was like,
I've
I'm
talked
going
a
to
lot
be
about
recognized.
our family vacations to LA. I didn't necessarily think I was going to be recognized, but I definitely thought I was going to like meet a star.
I was just a weird kid.
Or like you know, I was going to be like Hilary Duff and Raise Your Voice. Speaking of Hilary Duff being my everything, like I was going to meet somebody, you know, in LA, and we were going to take on Hollywood together.
Right.
And, you know, I
just thought someone was going to go, "Wow, hey, kid."
No one was going to look twice at me.
You ever thought about acting? You want to be in a movie? We're shooting a picture next week. You'd be perfect for this role.
And for Matthew Harried, that came true at 11 years old.
It's wild.
Because he asked the right group of people for directions. So you know what the moral of the story is?
Talk to strangers.
Yeah. Talk to strangers, ask people for directions. Nothing bad can happen.
Ask them for candy. Hey, excuse me, sir. Would you have any candy? Most of the strangers
is
I
that
meet.
Your van over there?
Is that your nice big white van with no windows? Wow. So roomy, so spacious, so much room for activities.
The character of Pudge evolved from originally a parrot sidekick that Danny brought with him from Kokomo.
Okay.
And Pudge himself was only supposed to be the little ice delivery boy in the first song sequence. But he was so cute and the voice actor was so great that they decided to extend his part and kind of merge it with the original sidekick idea.
Wow. That's
Wouldn't
fun.
be the same movie without Pudge.
No, he felt tangible. He felt like something that you've seen over and over and over. His voice had this quality to it that I was like, it's so familiar.
So youthful.
Yeah.
A kid, you know, like he was legitimately just a kid. He wasn't putting on because that's what he was.
He felt like some other character that we've come across before, but apparently not.
Ashley Peldon provided the speaking voice to the infamous Starla Dimple, star of Nightmares.
Yeah, buddy.
Like all my double entendres here. I really tried to work these in. She was around 9 years old when she played this role, but Ashley had also starred in Guiding Light and appeared in Drop Dead Fred, The Torkelsons, The Crucible, the 1996 Crucible, The Mommies, which we've mentioned before, Home Improvement, That 70s Show, and dozens of other titles.
Yeah.
What I found most pretty dark about Ashley, and also her most recent venture, she's now considered a rage scream artist.
I looked this up. I looked her up.
How do I get that job? Can I I'll teach myself.
I watched a short 60-second documentary video clip
on IMDb.
That is so cool.
She has provided screaming vocals to all kinds of film and TV shows.
It's awesome. It just sounds like every scream you've ever heard in a slasher horror film.
I feel like she's like the one to go to.
And she can hit all those tones, all those pitches, all those they sound fake.
They do.
They sound like fake. The repurposed screams you've heard over and over forever. She can just emulate
her
that.
Her speaking voice, I mean, she was 9 years old, but her speaking voice goes into those like super high octaves, like the high pitches.
Yeah.
Like when she gets really tense about something and just really needs to make a point, she talks like that.
The couple times they used her voice specifically to emphasize the character's rage or depth.
Yes.
Or extremities or something. Like
She's got Danny by the throat.
When they had her scream a line and let it like hang and echo.
I'm an angel. I am an adorable little angel.
I noticed how pure of a scream it was, how good of a vocal quality it was.
Yes.
So when I saw afterward that she was an actual scream professional.
Yeah, she's a professional
she screams
scream
for
artist.
a living.
Yeah.
I was like, how does this track so perfectly from her childhood to her adulthood? Like, she really cool. harnessed that skill.
Mm-hmm.
It's a skill
like a natural gift, really.
Yes.
Like a natural talent, and she just ran with it. And I think, that's awesome.
I have always wished that I had that mostly because I was convinced I was going to be in a punk band when I was younger, and I was going to have this incredible vocal performance, and I was going to be able to scream, at will, but I never got there. And instead, I really ruined my voice.
Trying.
And I need vocal therapy and probably surgery. But no, crazy and cool, and I'm jealous.
Just so cool.
Super
and
jealous.
we're going to talk all about Darla. We'll continue to talk about Darla. That will be a theme of part 2. Don't worry, guys. Don't worry.
Better be.
If you don't hear enough about her this time, you'll be sick of it by part 2. But we do have to share or remind you, because we've actually said this on the podcast before, I think, that Lindsay Ridgway provides Darla's impressive singing vocals.
Which you all know from Tower of Terror.
I was going to say Boy Meets World, but yes, Tower of Terror
I'm thinking Tower of Terror.
And she was one of the first actors that we talked about on our show, because
Tower of Terror was like episode 5, 6?
Yeah, we talked about it so early. And she was the second actress to play Morgan Matthews on Boy Meets World.
Yeah.
So, really fun.
Sally Shine.
Moving right along, we've got Kathy Najimy, one of our pretty dark favorites, who plays Tilly Hippo.
I love Kathy Najimy.
Love Tilly Hippo.
Me too.
We are Tilly Hippo fans.
I've known a few Tilly Hippos in my life, in real life.
I know. And honestly, they're great. And we need more of them because, goodness gracious, she's just perfect.
She's fantastic.
We spent a lot of time talking about Kathy's career, including a huge breakdown all about Kathy in our Hocus Pocus series from 2 Halloweens ago.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in Kathy and her career, that definitely exists in our archives. John Rhys Davies plays
Gimli.
Willie the Mammoth.
Gimli.
Okay, yeah, it is. Hang on. Give me a second. Get through the sentence. John Rhys Davies plays Wooly the Mammoth, whose most prominent credit is, of course, as
Gimli
in Lord of the Rings series.
Lord of the Rings.
Other dark IMDb catches include Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade, Tales from the Crypt, Freakazoid, and even SpongeBob.
Who did he play in SpongeBob?
I don't know. I think it may have just been an additional voices credit, but I'm just speaking out of turn because I didn't write it down.
Gimli and SpongeBob. Wow, worlds collide.
P.S. He also played Viscount Mabry in Princess Diaries 2, A Royal Engagement, which I so fondly mentioned in our last episode. It's one of my favorite movies, as is the original.
Wasn't he also in Sliders?
I think you're right. I didn't write it down.
Great show.
But iconic as Wooly the Mammoth here. And of course, Wooly the Mammoth as a character is a parody of the Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer mascot, Leo the Lion.
Right.
And we are going to talk all about that Hollywood history in part 2.
Oh,
I'm so sorry. People hate it when I do that. People hate when I'm like, oh, part 2. But I'm like, I just want people to know it's not that I didn't write it down or didn't research it. It's just we didn't have time to talk about it this time. So
that's a part 2 kind of thing to talk about.
Hold your horses, folks.
Yeah, people do call us a tease.
Yeah, we're just teases around here.
But you know what? Being called a tease is really never a bad thing.
I don't mind it, personally. My next credit that I simply could not be more thrilled to share with you guys. Betty Lou Gerson lends her voice to Francis Albacore, the fish.
Yeah.
And I got very excited.
Okay.
Because Betty Lou Gerson is none other than Cruella de Vil from the original 1961 101 Dalmatians.
Do you see my face?
I do see your face.
Do you see his face?
Bugging out of his head, y'all.
That's amazing.
To me, there is something perfect about this woman's voice. Perfect.
Yeah.
And it was the perfect choice for a washed up, old Hollywood fish lady.
Ready for my close-up.
Yeah, exactly.
She's a Hollywood archetype.
She is. She's a Hollywood archetype. And
nails it.
The Cruella thing, I've always loved 101 Dalmatians was also foundational for me.
Yeah.
The idea of the villain of Cruella. Obviously, we don't like anybody that harms puppies. That's not what I'm saying. But Cruella is an iconic villainess, if you will. And her voice is obviously a huge piece of that. Among dozens of other credits, one of her very first roles was as a narrator in Cinderella.
She was the narrator in Cinderella?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
She was also uncredited as an old crone in Mary Poppins, and she appeared in The Twilight Zone.
Oh, that's cool. All right.
Unfortunately, Frances Albacore was her last credited role, as she did pass away in 1999. So rest in peace, Betty. We appreciate you and your contributions to our childhoods and to Hollywood. Hal Holbrook fills the role of Cranston Goat, and Mr. Holbrook was on over 200 episodes of a 50s show called A Brighter Day, and acted throughout the decades that followed, even into modern hits like Sons of Anarchy, Bones, and Grey's Anatomy. So
cool.
He was on TV for a long time.
He did well.
And Don Knotts plays T.W. Turtle,
Don Knotts.
a neurotic and superstitious turtle. And I could spend a whole episode on just Don Knotts.
For sure.
But I'm going to go out on a limb and trust that our Darklings do know Mr. Barney Fife. If not as well as I do, then at least in theory.
What is it? The Ghost and Mr. Chicken? It's one of my favorite
have in my
movies.
notes right now. I do recall this being one of my uncle's favorite parts of the film when he took me to see it. He was thrilled by the fact that Don Knotts was in it. And he and my dad were big fans of course, Andy Griffith and a lot of Don Knotts' other films, like The Ghost and Mr. Chicken.
And of course, he was in Scooby-Doo too.
Yeah, Scooby-Doo also. But yeah, Ghost and Mr. Chicken. I have seen that movie so many times.
I've seen it one time.
Oh, I think it's just because my dad and my uncle liked it so much, and my papa as well.
It's so good. It's such a funny movie. He is so funny. I thought it was someone doing an impersonation
of Don Knotts. I kind of thought the same thing had I not seen it in the credits, because it's such a caricature.
I wish he'd just done his voice, his own natural voice for the turtle.
But I do like that it's, I get why he did what he did, you know?
It's understated for Don Knotts, which is saying a lot because he's already a very understated actor.
Mm-hmm. What does it say? I have it in my notes for part 2, but I'm going to go get the quote because I just love it. It says, "Give it up, loser." His fortune.
It's so quiet.
I love it.
I love Don Knotts, man.
Whatever I love about horror in The Page Master, I also love about Don Knotts.
Okay. Interesting. They're like an angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other. But I can see that.
You know, I don't know. It's just
They're very similar.
It's a similar vibe to me.
But different, yeah. In
a fun twist, and in contrast to T.W. Turtle's speaking voice, Rick Logan provides his singing vocals. Which is just, it's a night and day. It's meant to be. It's meant to be that way, and it's funny. It's played for comedy, but it's definitely funny. And Rick Logan was an uncredited singer on Little Nemo.
Oh, okay.
So there you go.
Nice connection. We
also have George Kennedy, who plays L.B. Mammoth, the human head of Mammoth Pictures, and he's got credits spanning back through the 50s as well, including Gunsmoke, Dallas, and even one episode of Real Monsters.
Real Monsters.
The character is, of course, a parody of Louis B. Mayer, figurehead of MGM.
Yeah.
But we'll get there.
Nice.
Renee Auberjonois. How do you say it? You said it last time.
Renee Auberjonois.
That's right. Renee Auberjonois plays Flanagan, who is the human film director of Little Archangel, the movie. Mm-hmm. And you just talked about him last time, so I will spare you all the recap. But I did want to add that he provided the voiceover for Mia's letter from her dad, Philippe, in the original Princess Diaries.
Oh, okay.
I had to do it.
I had no idea. I did not see that.
The girls that get it. I'm certain of that. I'm not worried about it.
No, I didn't see that credit, but Okay.
And speaking
Sure.
of recaps, a Pretty Dark staple, Frank Welker, plays Farley Wink. the
Yeah,
animal's talent
dude.
agent.
Frank Welker.
Frank Welker.
Speaking of horror from
Speaking
Pagemaster.
of horror, we got his voice in here
There
too.
he
But
is.
he plays a totally different character
Oh, absolutely.
in this one. There are a couple of other minor credits if you're being thorough, but I didn't find anything else pretty dark to report. So that completes our cast list.
Damn.
And I think, dear Darklings, that is going to wrap up part 1 of Cats Don't Dance.
Wow, okay.
Because I just hit you with a whole lot of information. And I'm going to let you process it. And we're going to get back together. And we're going to talk about all of the movie magic and madness.
We're going to get back
therein.
together next time
Mhm.
on That's Pretty Dark. Bring your flashlights, everybody. It's going to be awesome. You're so much braver than me. I feel like you always lump in like the casting
I do.
in the part ones. And
I do.
I'm always
I really
afraid I'm
go
going to
for
like
it.
really bore people to death.
See,
to
I feel like I
tears.
am too. Do I do that? I've
No,
asked a couple
absolutely
people
not.
just out of like convenience sake. I'm like, which would you prefer? And a lot of people like it when we do the cast list all in one fell swoop. But I think it also the variety is
Because
nice.
it interrupts the flow. That's true. I think it just depends. I think it like depends on what we're able to do with the content. Probably says more about it than anything else.
Yeah, but I mean, knowing the bombshells that I had for that list, I
Yeah.
figured I was safe.
But it's fun. Yeah,
They
yeah.
speak for themselves.
I just think back to our earliest episodes where we would list almost the entire
Every credit,
credit
whole
history.
IMDb. hmm
Yeah,
We've tried to at least edit.
I try to trim it down
Mm-hmm.
to just the highlights, but it also helps that we've covered so many things,
Right. Yeah, at this point, we rely on our own archives.
which is a lot of fun. Wow,
Yeah, it's a lot.
that's good information.
I just have such an appreciation for Mark Dindal because I really feel like he kind of strong-armed this movie.
28
And
years
when
old.
it could have been, not only was it so many cooks in the kitchen on set, but it was so many executives vying for their opinions and their ideas.
It could have been a Watcher in
And
the Woods
it could have
situation.
been a disaster. It
could have been a freaking Little Nemo in Slumberland situation.
It could have
yeah.
been, and it is wild to me that we are getting like a back-to-back example of like,
Yeah.
it is possible. It just takes this magic
This magic
intent. I don't know.
moment.
This magic moment.
Whatever. Guys, thanks for listening.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for being here with us today, for enjoying exploring all of this with us. We couldn't and wouldn't do it without you, and we are so grateful. If you want
Honestly.
more of us in your life for some reason, you can find us on social media. That's Pretty Dark Podcast on Instagram. That's Pretty Dark on TikTok. As long as we still have it, I really expect a ban any day now. And
Can't
if you
wait.
just really just need a dose of your ghost hosts,
A
you
dose
can
of
find
pretty
us
darkness.
on Patreon at,
Patreon.com/TPD podcast.
that's right.
And for those who have subscribed, and I failed to thank in the past couple episodes, we have a few
We've gone
patrons.
at least one episode without thanking patrons, and
To say
I'm
thank
so
you.
sorry. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, if we haven't said your name and you're disappointed, let
Please
us
reach
know.
out to us on Patreon.
Because you know what? We're only human.
We do make mistakes from time to time.
We're not perfect. We make mistakes as evidenced here on the podcast where you
Yes.
listen
All the time.
all the time. But we want to say thank you to BJB, Toby UK, Emily F,
Mary A. and Sarah.
and Sarah, no last name.
Nope. No last
Just
initial, just Sarah.
Sarah.
We are so grateful to each one of you. We apologize if you've been waiting for your shout out and you haven't gotten it yet. We hope that this was everything you hoped for and
You
more.
can stop crying now. You can be just,
Ugh.
wow, they didn't
We
forget
know you're
about
probably distraught about it.
me. So
No.
distraught. I
But
would
we
be.
genuinely, seriously are so grateful for your support and all of our patrons and
Seriously. though.
people that decided somehow that we were worth spending their hard-earned $5 a month on. We are just always blown away that you want to support us like that, and it means the world. And it just means the world that you listen, to be honest. And we do our best to update. We have some stuff on there. Christian's done a really good job of some bonus episodes. There's some video content there. Honestly, we have a lot of episodes where we do these cutting room floor episodes. We started doing that early on, and Christian has a ton that we just haven't had time to get to, but
Yeah.
the content exists, and we want to get it to you.
Yeah,
we're just trying
looking
to
for an
figure out-
assistant editor.
That's what I was about to say. We're trying to figure out new ways to get it there for you.
By the way, would love to have somebody to help me do this because
Yeah.
it's just
it's a lot.
it's a lot.
It's a lot, but we do it all with love for you, dear Darklings, and
Passion project.
with and for love for the content.
Yeah. Stick around for next time for part 2.
Happy birthday to Christian. We're not sure when exactly this episode is going to drop, but his birthday is April 27th, so it may have already happened.
Hopefully this comes out the night before.
That'd be great.
Yeah, April
We'll
27th, turning 33.
Happy birthday to our fearless leader, editor, co-host, all of the things. We are grateful for him and all that he does to bring the pretty darkness to life.
Well, thank you very much. It's very much appreciated.
You're welcome.
Yeah, anyway.
We'll be with you soon for part 2 of Cats Don't Dance.
Yeah.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to That's Pretty Dark, written and produced by Christian Baxter Mott and Kaylin Andrews.
Our music is composed by Jonathan Simmons, and our art is provided by Paige Garland at Power Girl Illustration.
Join the collective nostalgia and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at That's Pretty Dark Podcast.
Share your experiences and let us know what shows, films, or villains still haunt you from childhood at that'sprettydarkpodcast@gmail.com. Remember, you're never really alone.
So, until next time, sweet dreams, everyone.